So this time, let's assess the Hitler's domestic and foreign policies. So Hitler's policies, they reflected his desire to build a glorious, strong state. Remember, he had his role model, Otto von Bismarck. He wanted to bring Germany back to the days of Otto von Bismarck when Germany was regarded as a great nation. So in the domestic policies, the local policies, those ones, they were characterized by the concept of dictatorship of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi. So in the domestic, how the Nazi was ruling or was governing, it was mainly on following dictatorship. So that is how the domestic policies were like of the Nazi. So let's look at what were some of the achievements in this domestic policy. Number one, Hitler himself, his rule, it brought economic stability. Yes, he was a dictator. Sometimes when we hear about dictatorship, we hear about maybe the people who are bad, the people who are not wanted, but here we are saying that Adolf Hitler, during his rule, there was economic stability in Germany. Today, we are following, many countries, they are following democracy. But look at what happened, or what is happening is that we are crying in terms of economic stability. Most of the countries, it's not only Malawi. If you find out, you look at it, even those big countries, they are following democracy, yes, but look at their economies. They are also dancing there. The economies are not stable. So here we are saying that Adolf Hitler, he achieved economic stability for Germany. What did he do? He improved the production of self-sufficiency policy. So through the self-sufficiency policy, there was high production. And again, he depended less on imports, and the value of currency increased. And also there was a control of food price that reduced the inflation. That is the buying power. Money now, we are saying here that it increased, the value of currency increased, which means inflation now, it was reduced. And he also solved an unemployment problem in Germany. So we see there Adolf Hitler did a lot. He brought economic stability in Germany. Secondly, he also won the support of the army, which was the only instrument that could have removed him. So, you know, dictators sometimes they fear everyone and they don't trust everyone. And with that, they are also ruthless on everyone again. So Adolf Hitler, he managed to win the support of the army, because if the army is not happy, it can easily remove him. So he won the support of the army. And education became an effective way of spreading Nazi ideology. So in education, through education there, they were spreading Nazi ideology, praising about the Führer. You remember Adolf Hitler, when he became the dictator, he became to be known as the Führer, meaning the supreme leader. So his ideologies were spread into the education system, where children were taught that the greatest person in Germany is Adolf Hitler, and the Nazi ideology is the best. And also Hitler, he provided authoritarian leadership, which Germany wanted. Remember, we said that during the Weimar Republic, people were not happy with the Weimar Republic. They wanted the days of the Kaiser to be back. So with Adolf Hitler, people were happy to say, yes, we wanted this type of leadership, that is the authoritarian leadership. And also he restored Germany's honor through destruction of the Versailles Treaty. Remember, we have been talking of the Versailles Treaty to say it crippled the economy of Germany. So when he came to power, we mentioned that he did away with the Versailles Treaty. So with that, then, he restored the honor of Germany. And also, Germans were indoctrinated with the Nazi ideology. To be indoctrinated is to trust what you have been told as unchangeable. That is to be indoctrinated, to say, yes, this one is the only thing that is best all over the world. So we are saying that the Germans were indoctrinated with the Nazi ideology. So the Germans, they took the Nazi ideologies. We talked about the Nazi ideology. Those ideologies, they were infiltrated into the Germans to trust those ideologies, to say, throughout the world, there is nothing best than the Nazi ideology. So the youths were brainwashed. They were brainwashed. That is the same as indoctrination. They were brainwashed to say, to remove anything else but to impart one thing, that is Nazi ideology. And after 1933, the Nazi secretly increased the military forces and military aircraft and trained pilots. So we see there was that achievement that they increased the military. He increased the military, that is Adolf Hitler. So he announced the rearmament. Remember, we talked also about this one. So in 1933, when he took over power, Adolf Hitler announced rearmament, which means he disregarded everything that was agreed at the Versailles Peace Conference. But now let's look at the failures. He failed also. Nazi and Adolf Hitler, they failed. Number one was that the banning of trade union deprived the workers of their right to bargain for better conditions of work. So there was nothing like a workers' union or the trade union, whereby workers should come together and make their voices. Nothing like that. So it was banned. Workers did not have a voice during the Nazi period. And also the country continued to depend on imports. That was a problem again. Remember, we talked about Scant. We said Scant, when he was appointed the Minister of Economic Planning, he made relationships or agreements with the other countries or poor countries surrounding European poor countries, where Germany was getting some raw materials. So it meant that Germany still was importing most of the raw materials to make their things. And with that, then they failed. So at least 1/3 of raw materials were imported. They depended on the import. Another failure was the unfair and ruthless treatment of his opponents. Remember, we talked about the SS and the SA, who were ill-treating the opponents. Opponents in this case, there were all those people who were not for the Nazi ideology. For example, we mentioned of the Communist Party. We also mentioned of the Jews. So the Jews were the opponents of Germany, the opponents of the Nazi and the Adolf Hitler. As a result, they were treated unfairly. They were sent to concentration camps at Danzig and Auschwitz. They created concentration camps where these Jews were sent there, and they were not given food there. They were sent there to die, to perish, like that. So unfair and ruthless treatment of his opponents, therefore, it meant that it was a failure of Adolf Hitler, because it led to the millions of people who perished in the concentration camps. Another failure of Adolf Hitler were that the schools in Germany, they were turned into instruments of Nazi ideology and propaganda. As pointed out, the schools were only there to praise Adolf Hitler and the Nazi propaganda. That's why we said children, they were brainwashed. They were made to believe that only the greatest leader in the world is Adolf Hitler. The best party in the world is the Nazi party. So through the Nazi suppression. The Nazi suppressed freedom of worship through the state-controlled religion. On this one, the Nazi, or Adolf Hitler, he created an evangelical church. And that church, it was called the Reich Church, like the state church. So what happened in that church again was that he also appointed the bishop for that church. And instead of using the Bible, they were told to say, all right, you, the priest and the bishop of this church, you have to be using the Mein Kampf. You remember the Mein Kampf? The book that was written by Adolf Hitler. So he told the bishop to start preaching the words that he wrote in the Mein Kampf instead of using the Bible. And all those priests who were resisting to that, to say we need to use the Bible alone, they were sent to concentration camp. They were killed. So you can see there how he controlled religion as well. So he wanted to be made great even in religion, to replace the position of God, so that he should be worshipped. And really, he wanted people to be worshipped. And the people of Germany, they were forced to worship Adolf Hitler. And the Nazi, again, censorship of the press, books, and art. That one, it suppressed the freedom of expression. So people were unable to express themselves, what they thought about. They were unable to write creatively because they were forced to write about Adolf Hitler. So with that, then, it was a failure. And all political parties were banned except the Nazi party. So we see to it here that political parties, they were not allowed there. They were banned. They were not to be in existence there. So we have looked at what happened locally, that is the domestic policy. Let's look at the foreign policy now. What happened between Hitler, the Nazi party, and the other countries? So in the foreign policy, Hitler's aim, they were mainly to undo the Versailles Treaty. He wanted to undo the Versailles Treaty. And also to create a greater Germany by uniting all German-speaking people into the Reich. So he did that. And also to acquire the living space for the Germans. So basically, they were his feelings for his foreign policy. Another one was the rearmament. So Hitler's aim could not be achieved without the strong army. So he wanted the strong army in order to deal with the expansion or making Germany great again. So rearmament was at the center of his foreign policies. And also, what happened also, he pulled out of the League of Nations in 1933 and started to rearm between 1933 and 1935. So it was to advance the rearmament policy because he wanted to make Germany great. So Germany could not be great without the strong military. And there was the Concordat. The Concordat. A Concordat is an agreement also, is an agreement. In 1933, there was the Concordat. So Hitler signed a Concordat, an agreement with Pope Pius number 11 in 1933. So the two sides, that is now the Catholic Church and Adolf Hitler or the Nazi, they assured not to interfere on each other's work. Remember, here we are saying that Adolf Hitler, the issue of religion, he interfered much because he wanted to be worshipped again. He was even forcing the Catholics to join that evangelical church that he created there, so that all of them, they should be worshiping him, or they should be respecting him just as they respect the Pope. So with that then, the Pope saw to it that it was too much for Adolf Hitler. Then they signed what was called the Concordat in 1933, whereby they assured not to interfere on each other's work. But later, the relations or this agreement went bad when Pope again criticized Hitler's racism. Remember the issue of Jewish killing, or the Holocide. That one was terrible. It was really terrible because about 6 million Jews, they perished because of racism of Adolf Hitler. So the Pope at one point in time, he also talked about Adolf Hitler to say, no, my friend, in this world, you cannot be alone. You cannot occupy the whole world alone. You need other people of different races. So let them live. So with that, then, that relationship, the concordant, again, it went bad. It went sour. The relationship between the Pope and Adolf Hitler went bad. Another foreign policy, was the German-Polish on Non-Aggression Pact, and this one was in June 1934. So what happened was that Poland was becoming afraid of Germans' intentions, or whatever German was planning to do, the inventions as well. And again, Hitler, what happened on this one, they signed a treaty of non-aggression with Poland. So Poland came together with Germany to say, no, don't be aggressive on us. We need not to be aggressive. We are just neighbors. So they signed that agreement. Another foreign policy was the Anglo-German Naval Agreement, June 1935. So on this one, Britain and Germany, they agreed that Germany's navy should be raised to at least 35% of the British Navy. So they came together. Well, on this one, we have to look at it that it was like reversing what was agreed during the Versailles Treaty. Because the Versailles Treaty, Germany's army, you can remember, we said that it was reduced only to 100,000 soldiers. See, no submarine, no battleships. But here they are agreeing to say, all right, you can have the submarines, you can have the battleships. So Germany had the submarines, and that were banned by the Versailles Treaty. So it was like a reversal. So here it was somehow a weakness of the British, because they were the ones who were at the forefront designing those agreements at the Versailles Treaty. Now they are reversing that agreement. Another policy was the Rhineland March. Remember, we talked about the Rhineland, to say the Rhineland, it was the military base, the military region of Germany, but it was near France. So it was easy for Germany to invade France because their military base was just near France. That is, military base was the Rhineland. So during the Versailles Treaty, it was said that the Rhineland should be demilitarized. No army, no any military activity should be taking place in the Rhineland. And this Rhineland, it was to be supervised by France to make sure that nothing military is taking place there. But look at what is happening here. In 1936, then Hitler, he sent his troops to occupy the Rhineland. So you can see there, it is like a direct challenge to say, now we have already done away with the Versailles Treaty. We have nothing to do with that. Now we are going to occupy our own land. And he sent the troops there. So see what happened? Britain and France, they remained silent. So what did it mean, or it meant there? It meant that Hitler had successfully defied the Versailles Treaty, because it was the Versailles Treaty that barred Adolf Hitler not to do any military activity in the Rhineland. So here it was a direct defilement of the Versailles Treaty. Another foreign policy was this one, the Spanish Civil War. This one broke out in Spain 1936 to 1939. Now what happened was that the communists, they sympathized with the Republicans in Spain there and fought against the rebels. So the rebels were under General Franco in Spain. So you see that the communists from Russia, the communists who were spread in Germany, and again, they were them now, they wanted to take over Spain. So what happened was that Hitler, with the hatred of the spread of communism, then he assisted General Franco. General Franco, he was rebelling against the government of Spain there. So why did he help General Franco? On the other hand, Adolf Hitler, he wanted also to test his weapons. He wanted to see if the weapons that he had acquired by this time, they were really good enough. So with that, we see to it that General Franco, he was successful in taking over the government in France in Spain with the assistance of Adolf Hitler. And the other foreign policy was the Rome-Berlin Axis. The Rome-Berlin Axis, it was signed in October 1936. So, this Spanish Civil War, again, it brought together Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. They came together because in the Spanish Civil War, also Mussolini of Italy also sent his soldiers there. After they were successful, it's when now they came together to say, it means we can make a very good team. So they formed what was called the Rome-Berlin Axis. Why Rome? Rome, the capital city of Italy. Why Berlin? The capital city of Germany. So it's like the Rome-Berlin Axis. Rome-Berlin joining together. And in 1936, they signed, that's why when they signed that one. And another Hitler's foreign policy, it was the Anti-Comintern Pact, which was signed in November 1936. So you can see Adolf Hitler in 1936, he made a lot of advancements in 1936. He made a lot of international relations. So in this Anti-Comintern Pact of November 1936, Japan, Germany, and Italy, they entered into that agreement to work together against worldwide expansion of communism. These countries, they hated communism. They hated communism a lot. So that's why they came together to form Anti-Comintern. You can wonder, Japan. Japan, we're talking of 1936 here, but remember that what happened when we talked about in 1910 when Russia took over the territories that Japan was eyeing. That's where the hatred started. But although the hatred started from way back, 1904-05, when Japan defeated Russia, still more the hatred was there. So since communism started in Russia, therefore Japan could not accept that one. So that's why Japan came together with Germany and Italy to form the Anti-Comintern Pact, whereby they were to fight against the spread of communism worldwide. Another foreign policy of Hitler was the Anschluss. Remember the Anschluss? The union of Germany and Austria, which was denied. The Versailles Treaty rejected that one, or had forbidden that one. Why? Because it was encouraging Germany's militarism. So in 1936, Adolf Hitler, he took control of Austria to disregard the Versailles Treaty. So he did that one to show that now completely we are doing away with the Versailles Treaty. Whatever the Versailles Treaty agreed we are no longer bound to that. We are doing our own things in a free way. So come here, Austria, we come back to our old relationship. And again, there was the Munich conference in 1938 in September. So listen to this one very carefully. Adolf Hitler, he invited Daladier. Daladier was the French leader, the French prime minister, and Chamberlain was the British prime minister. So he invited them. He invited them to a conference which took place in Munich, that is in Germany. So also he invited his friend. Remember his friend? Mussolini. From where? Italy. So from a friend of him, Adolf Hitler, also joined. That is Mussolini. So Hitler demanded, during this Munich conference, he demanded that Sudetenland, which was to be part of Czechoslovakia according to the Versailles Treaty, it was to be given back to Germany. So he demanded that we want Sudetenland, which you at the Versailles Treaty you said it should be part of Czechoslovakia, we want it back. So what happened there? Britain and France, which were represented by Daladier and Chamberlain, they agreed to say, no problem. After all, it was already your land. We just wanted to discipline you so you can get it back. So see what happened? The meeting was in September, but in October, we see Hitler sending the troops to occupy Sudetenland, and it was done without any resistance because the big parties, or Britain and France, they already agreed to that. Another foreign policy of Adolf Hitler, that was Czechoslovakia, March 1939. So in March 1939, Hitler annexed the whole of Czechoslovakia and set up the Nazi-controlled government there. See? So it started by just getting Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia to say, we have taken this one. And when Adolf Hitler saw to it that there was no any resistance from Czechoslovakia, then in 1939, he went ahead and captured the whole of Czechoslovakia, and he set up the Nazi government there, and Adolf Hitler took over control of the whole of Czechoslovakia. Another Adolf Hitler's foreign policy was the Nazi-Soviet Pact, and this one was in August 1939. So on this one, Adolf Hitler, he believed that the French and the British would not allow what Adolf Hitler has started to do of annexing countries now, independent countries. He knew for sure that Britain and France, although they allowed him to take Sudetenland, but this action of taking the whole of Czechoslovakia, Britain and France, they are going to react. So with that then, he feared that if they react, they will pose war on Germany. Therefore, he came into agreement with Russia to say if Germany was at war with Britain and France, therefore Russia should be neutral. So they signed this one, which was called the Non-Aggression Pact with Stalin, Stalin there in 1939. So what did they agree? So they agreed, number one, to divide Poland. Remember, it is the same Poland which Adolf Hitler also made an agreement with, to say they need to stay together as neighbors. But secretly, behind the back of Poland, then Adolf Hitler is signing an agreement with Joseph Stalin there to say, all right, Russia and Germany are going to divide Poland. But at the same time, Germany and Poland, they are in agreement to say, all right, we are good neighbors, let's stay as neighbors, like that. So they also signed or agreed to stay neutral in case of war. If any of them is in war with any other country, they have to be neutral. So it was a fulfillment of his wish, of Hitler's belief that if she is attacked by France and Britain, then Russia is not going to attack, to avoid the Two Fronts War. Two Fronts War, we also mentioned it when we were talking about the First World War. Germany also feared that one. That was the greatest fear of Germany, the Two Fronts War, fighting the wars from two sides, from the east and from the west. So what happened, what followed was that on 1st September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. And on 3rd September, Britain and France could not tolerate that one. Then they declared war on Germany, and that was the beginning of the Second World War. So Russia, on her part, she invaded Poland on 17th September, according to the Nazi-Soviet Pact, because they said they were going to divide Poland. So it started with Germany on 1st September, and on 17th September, Russia followed. Then there was the Lebensraum, another policy. So this policy, it was a policy of creating a living space for the pure Germans, the Aryan race, the Aryan master race. So by 1941 in June, Germany attacked the Soviet Union, but she failed to defeat Russia. So you can see there, Germany or Adolf Hitler had no permanent friend, because we have just talked about the Nazi-Soviet Pact 1939, whereby they agreed to be friends, to share the spoils, and to remain neutral. But in 1941, we are seeing here Adolf Hitler, he's attacking the Soviet Union, Russia, the same friend. So, however, Germany failed to do that. So with that, she was frustrated. So even Hitler was frustrated to create a more living space for the master race of the Aryan, to create more living space for the Germans. So he failed on that one. So, to that effect, we have come to the end of this topic, development of autocratic government in Germany. We have seen how Germany evolved in terms of leadership, from the Kaiser, from the to the Weimar Republic, and to the dictatorship of Adolf Hitler. On this part, we have seen a number of concepts on how Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party came to power. But next, we'll be joining, or we'll be looking at the other topic, and this is another very, very interesting topic, and this is the causes and the results of the Second World War. Causes and the results of the Second World War, which broke out in 1939. We have just mentioned a little of the events that sparked the war, like the invasion of Poland, to say when Germany invaded Poland on 1st September 1939, on 3rd September, Britain and France, they did not tolerate that one, and they declared war on Germany. And that was the beginning of the Second World War. So next, we are going to expand it further. How did this World War, how did it come into existence? So this is another interesting topic. So be there. Thank you so much.
Simutaya nthawi yanu kufunafuna maphunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani, ajala kalime, ajala kuchwe manyazi, ajala katende yanti, ndipo anthu ophunzira wandu wotumanso kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira, skulu akuyikirani aba mukhala otumidwa.